Hello there, beautiful. Now, many women are asking me, should my menstrual cycle align with the moon phases? And sometimes they're not really sure even what that means. So today in this video, I'm going to be unraveling the connection between the womb cycle and the moon cycle. You'll discover how these two cycles relate to each other and how actually it doesn't matter if your menstrual cycle is aligned with the current moon phase. In fact, I'll be sharing with you why it can be advantageous for you to not be aligned with the current moon phase. And finally, I'll share with you my simple way of working with both cycles so you can feel more at home in your body no matter what phase you're in. Now, this is based on the fact that the average menstrual cycle is the same length as a 29-day moon cycle. And both cycles have 4 distinct phases with similar energies. I'm Samjana Moon, and this is the Sacred Feminine Revolution, the place to be if you want to learn to live in harmony with your menstrual cycle and the moon phases. If you're watching this on YouTube, please do subscribe to the channel and click the little bell so you can get notified when I've got new free content. This is really going to help me on my mission to empower women to live in a more cyclical way. So I'm going to break this down into 3 really simple steps. We're going to use the inner seasons map here that's going to give you a clear visual and make it super easy to understand. So firstly, I'll talk a little bit about the 4 different phases and the energies available to us. Then we'll look at how the menstrual cycle and moon cycle, what happens when they are in alignment and when they're not in alignment, and how it can be beneficial both ways. Finally, I'll give you a few different examples of combinations of moon phases and a menstrual cycle so that you can get a clear idea of how you can make this work in your life. So let's dive in. So here we have my map of the seasons. You can see 4 distinct phases here. And the 4 seasons of the year, we liken them to the menstrual cycle and the moon phases because they also have 4 distinct phases and the energies are very similar. So this is really the cycle of creation. Now in the winter, it's a time of stillness, of containing energy in the inner world. Everything in nature is still. The trees are resting, the plants are resting. And then they awaken in the spring, the time of action and growth, transitioning to the outer world in full light and full summer when everything is just abundant. And then we transition again through the autumn back into the winter season. And in the autumn, it's very much about slowing down. All the leaves are falling down again to the ground to nourish the soil. So in the menstrual cycle, we refer to these 4 phases as inner seasons, as they're happening inside of us. And the energies are very, very similar. And it's the same with the moon phases. So I refer to those as lunar seasons. So you can see how each is aligned. So we have the menstrual cycle here, numbers 1, around 28. The moon phases from dark moon, waxing to full, and then waning again to new. And the reason we align winter with our inner winter and the dark moon is because all the hormone levels are very, very low at this time in the cycle, just before we menstruate and the first days of menstruation. Estrogen, testosterone, progesterone are all very low. So it's a time of real stillness in our cycle. We're not stimulated by these hormones so much. It's a time of withdrawal, of recharging ourselves, and time to daydream and explore our life options and trust that inner guidance. It's a great time for meditation. Now the new moon, this is a time of divination. It's a very restful time energetically for us and new beginnings. And opposite that we have inner summer and lunar summer. Inner summer is a time when we ovulate. It's sort of mid-cycle. It's a time of fertility. It's when we feel our most expressive and we enjoy pleasures and lovemaking a lot more. Equally, the lunar summer is a time when we love to party. We love to be out and about and communicating with people and having fun. And then we transition between them through spring and autumn. So now let's look at how the menstrual cycle and moon phases don't always align. I'll use this token here to represent where we are in the menstrual cycle and this one for the moon. So if we were aligned with the moon phases, if our menstrual cycle was on day 1 and the moon was also on the first day of the moon cycle, which is the dark moon or new moon, then the two are aligned and we're experiencing an alignment of energies.
it's in a winter and a lunar winter. So that can be very, very deep. It can take us really into our inner worlds. And for some people who really enjoy that time of stillness and like a lot of time alone, more introverted folk, this can be really great and it can feel really aligned, because as you're going through your menstrual cycle, all the energies are aligned and they're all feeling the same. But for some people, this can be a real challenge, because I met a lady once who said that she felt really depressed at the time of her menstrual cycle when she was bleeding. She was aligned with the dark moon, and so she was just being really pulled inside of herself, and she found this really challenging. And interestingly, what happened is her cycle began to shift, and she started to menstruate with the full moon. So she had these opposing energies, and so she had this light of the lunar summer just helping her to be more, at ease, being in the world a little bit more. She wasn't so drawn inside of herself. And she said her depression really lifted, and she's really happy with this alignment. So let's take my cycle, for example. Now, I have a 27-day cycle, and the moon is 29 and a half days. My menstrual cycle and the moon phases, I have a different relationship throughout the year. And what I find is that in the summer months of the year, I tend to bleed with the full moon. And this makes sense to me in a way, because my body is pumped for doing lots of things. I work a lot on the land, I do photo shoots in nature. I'm out and about an awful lot and spending a lot of time being busy. So it's really supportive actually for me to not go too deep in the summer, because I'm quite busy anyway. Now I still do honor this time by getting more rest and making a bit more time for meditation. But that's how I see it working for me. And what happens with my 27-day cycle is throughout the year, so if we're going through the months of the year, by the time I get to winter, I'm bleeding again with the dark moon. And so this is really interesting, because now if we're talking about, the alignment of energies, if I'm bleeding in the winter months with the lunar winter, and I've got my inner winter, then I've got kind of the triple winter energy. So I can go really, really deep inside in the winter and do a lot of inner work, which is really supportive of that time of year for me. So I like to think that my body is just finding a way to support me with the way I live in my life. And by being more aware of how these alignments are playing out by tracking the moon cycle and the menstrual cycle, we can start to, really work with that energy. It can be really, really supportive. So personally, I don't think there's any right or wrong way to be aligning with the moon. I think it's a very personal thing, and it's something to explore, and I think that's really exciting. Now, Miranda Gray, author of Red Moon, suggests that when we are in sync with the moon, that we're much more focused on our inner world and our inner creativity. Doing shadow work and things like that can be very powerful when we're aligned with the moon. And also, we potentially have a better chance of conceiving a child because the energies are aligned. She calls this a red moon. When we're bleeding with the full moon energy, Miranda calls this a white moon. And this is when our creative energy is much more focused on what we're producing in the outer world, what we're manifesting on a physical plane. So what offerings are we creating for the world? And, how are we expressing ourselves? How are we putting ourselves out there? So the creative energy of the cycle is much more focused on the outer world. So let's look at a few other alignments so you can see how they can work for you or they can create challenges. If your menstrual cycle is, if you're in your inner summer, at the midpoint in your cycle, this is a time when we really love to nurture our relationships, and we're more interested in sex generally and anything that brings pleasure into our lives. So it's often a time we like to go shopping and we enjoy those lovely cakes that we don't always feel are good for us. It's a time of indulgence. And let's say that the moon is in its lunar autumn. This can create a lot of tension because actually, the moon is asking us to come back into our bodies, it's asking us to slow down. It's a time of kind of decluttering and organizing our lives, and that's the last thing we're interested in when we're in the summer generally. We want to be out in the world having fun. So it can, mean that basically we don't enjoy so much the energy of our inner summer when we're fertile. It might be that we're not so interested in the pleasures of life because we're feeling this pull inside of ourselves. So that can be a challenge if we're not aware of it, of course, and we might find ourselves saying, oh God, I'm really not, I wonder what's happening. Is there something up with my hormones this month? I'm just not feeling it. But actually, it could just be the pull of the moon here. But we can make this work for us by looking at, okay, so the energy of the moon is there. Are there some things I need to let go of? Have I been wanting to declutter my wardrobe? And then we've got the energy to do that because we're in this inner summer. And we can sort of, put our mind to these kinds of projects that are going to sort of organize our lives with the love and, the nurturing of that time in our cycle. So you can see how tracking can really be supportive. So if you've got something like our moon clocks and menstrual cycle clocks that are tracking the cycles for you and showing you where the moon is and where you are in your menstrual cycle, then at a quick glance you can see, okay, this is what energies are available to me today, and this is how I can work with them, and these are potentially some of the challenges I need to look out for. So say now that your menstrual cycle is in an autumn phase, premenstruum, which is often the most challenging phase for most women when deep emotions come up, grief comes up, old traumas can come up, and it can be a real challenge if we don't know how to process those emotions. And if you're aligned with the moon, then this can make it super intense as well. This can just exaggerate all of the feelings and make it quite difficult. Our inner critic can really come in and just be really fierce with us. If you were, the moon was in opposition, you might have an easier time of it because, the inner spring is very playful and flirtatious, and it's a time for newness and being busy and taking action. So there's this, it can create balance. You might find it potentially challenging. It's very individual with the cycle, which is why it's really important to start exploring and tracking and see what's really working for you.
So that completes my free training today. I hope you've now got a really great grasp on the moon phases and the menstrual cycle and how you can tap into both energies to make them work in your life. If you're keen to get your hands on the post that was used as a demo or this beautiful circle cloth behind me, then you can pick up yours at my website, innerseasons.com. And if you are here on YouTube and you've enjoyed this today and you'd like to hear more from me, please click on the subscribe and click on the little bell to make sure you're notified next time I upload some free content. So until we meet again, sending you lots and lots of love. Mwah.